The sun was just peeking through the curtains when Claire rolled over and smiled at Jeremy. The air was filled with the sweet scent of spring and a hint of anticipation. Today was the day they would start preparing the nursery, a tangible step towards becoming parents. Jeremy, with his tousled hair and that usual serious look, was already up, staring at the pile of baby catalogues on the bedside table. Claire sat up, stretching her arms towards the ceiling, and then turned to face him. Her heart swelled with love as she noticed the softening in his eyes when he looked at her. "Are you ready for this, Jeremy?" Claire asked, her voice gentle yet carrying an undercurrent of excitement. Jeremy took a deep breath and offered a small, uncharacteristic grin. "As ready as I'll ever be. But Claire, are we really sure about the colour for the nursery? I read that soft blues are soothing, but you seem set on yellow." Claire chuckled, the sound light and airy. "Yellow is cheerful, Jeremy. It's like bringing a little sunshine inside. Besides, it's good for a girl or a boy." He nodded, conceding the point, but still looked slightly apprehensive. Claire reached out, taking his hand in hers, squeezing it reassuringly. "Hey, we'll figure this out together, okay? We always do." Jeremy squeezed back, the corners of his mouth twitching upwards. "Okay, let's make this the best little room in the world." Standing together, they went to the window, drawing back the curtains to let the light flood the room. The garden outside was blooming, mirroring the new phase in their lives. As they stood side by side, Claire leaned her head against Jeremy's shoulder, feeling the solidity of his presence. "Think our kid will like gardening?" Jeremy asked, a playful tone in his voice as he gestured towards the riot of colours outside. "I think our kid will love anything that grows," Claire replied, imagining a future with a little one toddling around the garden. Jeremy smiled, a genuine, heartfelt one this time. Claire's first glimpse of the city skyline had been a mixture of awe and nervous excitement. Leaving behind the familiar comfort of her small town, she carried with her the loving memories of Grandpa Jack and the nest egg he had saved for her education. It was this inheritance that paved her way to college and opened the door to a future she had yet to imagine. The bustling campus life was a stark contrast to her quiet upbringing, but Claire found her footing, immersing herself in her studies and the vibrant community around her. It was here, in a crowded lecture hall, that she first noticed Jeremy. Jeremy was hard to miss, with his easy charm and laughter that seemed to draw people to him. He came from a well-to-do family on the East Coast, a world away from Claire's simple roots. Despite their different backgrounds, something clicked between them. Jeremy was genuinely kind to Claire, his attentions both flattering and a bit overwhelming at times. Jeremy's courtship was persistent and sweet, filled with small gifts and thoughtful notes. But Claire, steadfast in the values Grandpa Jack had instilled in her, maintained a respectful distance. She enjoyed Jeremy's company, but she wasn't ready for the intimacy he sought. "Claire," Jeremy had said one evening as they sat on a park bench, his voice earnest, "I've never met anyone like you. You've got this strength, this grace that's just incredible. I love that about you." Claire smiled, touched by his sincerity. "I appreciate you, Jeremy, and I enjoy our time together. But we need to take things slow, that's important to me." Jeremy nodded, though it was clear he was disappointed. "I understand," he said, though his eyes held a hint of frustration. As months turned into years, Jeremy's feelings only deepened. One crisp autumn day, he stopped Claire on their way from class, his eyes alight with a nervous energy. "Claire, I can't imagine my life without you. Marry me?" Claire's heart fluttered with a mix of joy and uncertainty. "Jeremy, we're still in school. Let's finish our studies first. It's what Grandpa Jack would have wanted for me, to focus on my education. But Jeremy was persistent. I can't wait that long, Claire. I want to be with you, truly be with you, as soon as we can. It was not without reservations that Claire finally said yes, moved by Jeremy's unwavering commitment and her own growing love for him. They planned a simple wedding, a celebration that would mark the start of a new chapter in their lives together. The delivery room was filled with the usual chaos of birth, nurses bustling, doctors guiding, and Claire breathing through the pain. The moment their baby was born, a sudden hush fell over the room, punctuated by the baby's first robust cry. It was a sound full of life and new beginnings, but the OB/GYN's expression held a trace of surprise and confusion. As the nurse gently cleaned and wrapped the newborn, Dr. Ames approached Claire with a soft, cautious smile. "You have a beautiful baby boy," she said, her voice warm yet slightly hesitant. Claire, exhausted and elated, reached out eagerly for her son. The instant the little bundle was placed in her arms, her eyes brimmed with tears. All the months of anticipation, fear, and joy culminated in this single moment. She cradled him close, her tears falling freely as she kissed his tiny forehead. The colour of his skin, unexpectedly dark, didn't register in her mind. All that mattered was his safety and the overwhelming love she felt. In the quiet of her embrace, Claire finally noticed something amiss in the room's atmosphere. She looked up, searching Jeremy's face for shared joy, but found only shock and confusion. Jeremy stared, his face draining of colour. "Claire, how is this possible?" His voice was a mix of disbelief and rising anger. Why is his skin black?" Claire's heart stuttered, the joy of the moment tarnishing under his cold tone. I don't know, Jeremy, but he's our baby. He's your son." Jeremy was hardly listening. "This doesn't make sense, Claire. Are you telling me there's nothing you're hiding from me?" His voice rose, tinged with accusation. Claire clutched the baby closer, her confusion turning to hurt. "Jeremy, I swear to you, I've never been with anyone else. You have to believe me." The room filled with a tense silence, broken only by the soft cooing of the baby. Jeremy paced back and forth, his thoughts racing, not wanting to accept the situation. "I need some air," he muttered finally, and stormed out, leaving Claire alone with her newborn. Jeremy paced back and forth in the small room, his mind racing as fast as his steps. The room was dimly lit, casting long shadows on the walls, adding to the tension that already filled the air. Then he ran back into Claire's room. "Claire, this doesn't make any sense," he exclaimed, throwing his hands up in frustration. Claire reached out her hand, trying to soothe him. "I know what you're thinking, but I'm telling you the truth. I don't understand it either, but I've read about these things. Sometimes these things happen. It's rare, but not impossible." Jeremy's simmering frustration suddenly boiled over, his voice escalating as he stood up abruptly from the sofa. "This is ridiculous, Claire. How can you sit there and expect me to just accept this?" His shout echoed off the walls and the room seemed to shrink with the intensity of his anger. Claire flinched, pulling the blanket closer to her as if it could shield her from his rage. "Jeremy, please, you have to believe me. I wouldn't lie about this, not about something so important." But Jeremy was beyond listening. His mind was clouded with images of betrayal, and each plea from Claire only fueled his anger more. Claire stood up, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "I know it's hard. I know it doesn't make sense, but I am telling you the truth. You have to believe me. We can figure this out together." "Figure this out?" Jeremy's voice was scornful, his eyes narrowing. "There's nothing to figure out if you're lying to me." Seeing that words were not enough to calm him, Claire reached out to touch his arm, trying to connect with him. to bring him back from the brink. But he jerked away, stepping back as if her touch burned him. "Don't," he said sharply. "I need some space. I need to think." With that, Jeremy grabbed his jacket from the hook near the door and stormed out, leaving Claire alone with her distress and the echoing silence of the room. As the door slammed shut, Claire sank back onto the sofa, her body trembling and her heart breaking. She knew this was far from over, and the road ahead was uncertain. Tears mingled with determination in Claire's eyes. She whispered to her son, "No matter what happens, I love you. We'll get through this together." Her voice was a steady promise in the storm of doubt and hurt initiated by Jeremy's reaction. The challenges they were about to face were immense, but Claire knew the bond she felt with her son was unbreakable. She was prepared to protect it at all costs, hoping that Jeremy would see the truth in her eyes and in the face of their child. As the days rolled on, Jeremy wrestled with confusion and anger and the unsettling birth of the baby. In his turmoil, he hadn't spoken to his parents, Shannon and Zach, about the baby's arrival. When they called to check in, full of excitement and anticipation, Jeremy found himself weaving a web of half-truths. "Hi, Mum. Hi, Dad." Jeremy answered the phone, his voice strained. "Jeremy, dear, how's Claire? Has the baby arrived yet?" Shannon's voice was eager, brimming with the joy of a soon-to-be grandmother. Jeremy paused, his heart heavy. No, not yet," he lied, rubbing his forehead. "Claire's pretty stressed and she's not really up for talking. We're just waiting." "Oh, poor thing." "Well, tell her we're thinking of her and can't wait to meet our grandchild," Zach chimed in, his voice warm and understanding. "Will do, Dad." "Thanks," Jeremy replied, feeling the weight of each word. He hung up the phone with a sigh, his gaze drifting to where Claire was sitting by the window, cradling the baby. The air was thick with tension as Jeremy dialed his parents' number, his fingers trembling slightly. Each ring echoed in the quiet room where Claire sat, holding their son, her face a mask of apprehension. When his mother, Shannon, picked up, Jeremy's voice was a tight whisper. "Mum, Dad, we need to talk about something important," Jeremy began, his heart racing. Shannon's voice was bright at first. "Of course, Jeremy, is Claire okay? Is the baby here?" Jeremy paused, taking a deep breath before he spoke. "Yes, the baby's here, but there's something you need to know," his voice faltered. "The baby, he's black." There was a stunned silence on the line. Then Shannon's voice, now icy cold, cut through. "What did you just say?" Jeremy swallowed hard, his voice strained. "I said the baby is black. I think Claire cheated on me." The accusations flew fast and furious from the other end of the line. Zach's voice, usually calm and steady, was now sharp with anger. "You mean to tell us that our grandchild isn't really our grandchild? That Claire has made a fool of you, of all of us?" Jeremy flinched, each word like a physical blow. I don't know, Dad. I just know the baby isn't white." "You've brought shame upon our family, Jeremy. How could you let this happen? How could you not know?" Shannon's voice was shrill, disbelieving. Jeremy tried to interject, to explain his confusion and hurt, but his words were drowned out by his father's furious tirade. "This is unacceptable, Jeremy. You need to do something about this immediately. Get rid of them both. We cannot have this scandal attached to our name." Jeremy glanced at Claire, who hadn't heard anything. The line went dead. His parents had hung up, leaving him in a cold silence that seemed to spread through the room. Claire looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. "Jeremy, what are we going to do?" Jeremy had been unusually quiet for the past 2 days. He seemed restless, unable to sit still for long, and he kept avoiding Claire. Each time Claire tried to talk to him, asking if something was wrong, Jeremy would just get more irritated. "Hey, Jeremy, is everything okay?" Claire asked gently, trying to catch his eye. Jeremy sighed heavily, avoiding her gaze. "I'm fine, Claire," he snapped, more sharply than he intended. Claire took a step back, hurt by his tone. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here," she offered softly before walking away, giving him space. The sun was just peeping over the horizon when Jeremy and Claire, with their baby wrapped tightly in a soft blanket, left the city's comforting hum behind. The car's tires rolled smoothly along the road, the only sound for miles as they ventured deeper into the unfamiliar territory. Claire looked out the window, watching as the urban landscape gave way to greener pastures, her mind swirling with unanswered questions. "Jeremy, can you at least tell me why we're going here?" Claire finally broke the silence, her voice tinged with a mix of curiosity and concern. Jeremy kept his eyes on the winding road, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. It's something I need to show you. Something important," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The deeper into the woods they drove, the more Claire felt a chill creep up her spine. The trees seemed to close in around them, their branches casting ghostly shadows across the car. The baby stirred in her arms, and she gently rocked him, whispering soothing words. After what seemed like an eternity, Jeremy turned off the engine. They were in a small clearing, surrounded by towering pines and the sound of a distant river. He got out of the car first, taking in a deep breath of the crisp forest air. "Come on," he said, reaching out to help Claire out of the car. He didn't wait for her to gather her things before starting towards a narrow path that led further into the woods. With the baby secure in her arms, Claire followed, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The forest seemed to watch them, its silent sentinels towering above. "What is this place?" Claire asked, her voice echoing slightly in the open air. The silence between them stretched as they walked, weighed down by the absence of conversation. Claire clutched her baby closer to her chest, her heart racing with a mix of fear and confusion. She trusted Jeremy, her husband, implicitly, until now. This path, this unexpected detour away from the familiarity of their daily routine, had seeded a gnawing doubt deep within her. Jeremy led the way with hurried steps, his face a mask of concentration. Claire struggled to keep up, her mind racing as fast as her feet. "Where are we going?" she finally managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just a bit further," Jeremy replied without turning, his voice flat, almost robotic. That was all he offered, no comforting smile, no reassuring pat on the shoulder. Just a few cold words that bounced hollowly in the crisp air. As the woods around them grew thicker, Claire's unease blossomed into full-blown panic. She was alone, save for the small, trusting body of her baby pressed against her. The trees seemed to close in around them, casting long shadows that danced menacingly through the underbrush. Then, abruptly, Jeremy stopped. He patted his pockets, a frown creasing his brow. "I forgot my phone in the car," he muttered, more to himself than to Claire. "Wait here. I'll be right back." Without waiting for her response, he turned and jogged back the way they had come. Claire's heart pounded in her chest as she watched him disappear into the distance. The forest seemed to swallow him whole. She waited, each minute stretching longer than the last, her mind a whirlpool of fear and confusion. The sudden roar of an engine shattered the silence. Claire's head whipped around, her eyes wide with disbelief. Through a break in the trees, she saw the car. Jeremy was in the driver's seat, the vehicle turning around in a spray of gravel and leaves. "No, Jeremy, wait!" Claire's voice tore from her throat, raw and desperate. She started to run, her feet clumsy and uncertain on the uneven ground. The baby wailed. Frightened by the sudden movement, and the sharp edge of panic in his mother's voice. But it was too late. The car sped away, the sound of the engine fading until there was nothing but the mocking calls of the birds and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Claire stopped, her body sagging as the realization hit her. He had left them, alone, in the middle of nowhere, without a word of explanation. Tears blurred her vision as she looked around, disoriented and scared. How could he do this? Why? Claire's shoulders shook as sobs racked her body, her tears soaking the front of her baby's blanket. The cold, damp grass beneath her did little to comfort her physical discomfort, but the pain in her heart was far greater, pulsating with every memory of Jeremy's once sweet nothings. In the haze of her tears, Claire's mind replayed the recent past. Jeremy, who had once looked at her as if she hung the stars in the sky, had transformed into a stranger. His accusations were like daggers to her soul, each word a betrayal of the vows they had shared. "How could you?" he had screamed just nights ago, his face contorted with a rage she had never seen. "I didn't, Jeremy, please believe me," Claire had pleaded. Her suggestion to settle the matter with a DNA test was met with scoffs. "Those tests? They're not reliable. They make mistakes," he had argued, dismissing her plea with a wave of his hand. The gulf between them had grown instantly, filled with doubt and accusation. Now, abandoned and alone, Claire gripped her baby tighter. As she looked into the baby's big, dark eyes, innocent and unclouded by the world's cruelties, a fragile smile broke through her tear-streaked face. "It's just you and me now," she whispered, her voice a lullaby amid the chaos of her breaking heart. "Why, God, what have I done to deserve this?" Her whisper carried into the wind, a prayer for understanding, for strength. The silence of the forest seemed to listen, the rustling leaves like whispered responses. Her baby breathed softly, a balm to her battered spirit. Here, in her arms, was purity and love, untouched by the harshness of betrayal. Her love for her child was a clear, unwavering light in the fog of her misery. Drawing a deep breath, Claire wiped her tears. She needed to be strong, to rise from the cold ground and find a way forward. For her child, she had to rebuild from the ashes of her shattered trust. Looking around, she tried to orient herself. The forest seemed like a labyrinth, but Claire knew she had to start somewhere. Determined, she rose, her baby nestled against her chest, and took a tentative step. Each step became a promise to herself and her baby. They would overcome, and maybe, just maybe, they would survive. The weight of her fatigue seemed to crush Claire as she trudged through the dense underbrush of the woods, the baby heavy in her arms. Each step felt more challenging than the last, her muscles screaming for relief, her mind clouded with worry. All she wanted was to find a way out, to escape the looming trees that seemed to close in around her with each passing minute. As the sky began to darken, painting the world in shades of grey and deep blue, Claire's thoughts drifted to her grandfather Jack. He had been her rock, a steadfast presence in her life. "Tough times never last, but tough people do," he would say with a warm, reassuring smile. The memory of his words was a small comfort in her current despair. With a deep, steadying breath, she leaned against a large tree, its bark rough against her back. The attempt to start a fire had been futile. Her hands were too shaky, the kindling too damp from the recent rains. Defeated, she sat down, pulling her baby closer to conserve their warmth. The first hints of twilight cast long shadows through the woods, and the temperature dropped. Claire hugged her baby, her body shivering not just from the cold, but from the fear of the unknown night ahead. She felt her eyes grow heavy, the exhaustion threatening to pull her into sleep despite her best efforts to stay alert. Then, a bark shattered the silence. Claire's eyes snapped open. She peered into the dimming light and saw a dog a short distance away. It barked again, its tail wagging in a friendly manner. Heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear, Claire watched as the dog sat down, its gaze fixed on her and her baby. "Thunder? Thunder? Where are you?" a raspy voice called out, breaking through the trees. Moments later, a flashlight beam cut through the darkness, swinging wildly until it landed on Claire. The light paused, and a figure stepped into view. The man holding the flashlight was older, his face lined with years of living. His eyes widened in shock as he took in the sight of Claire, huddled under the tree with her baby. "My God, are you all right?" the man exclaimed, rushing over. He knelt beside her, the dog now beside him, nuzzling Claire's hand with its nose. Claire's tears flowed freely as she stood, her body trembling from exhaustion and relief. Ray, the old man with a gentle demeanour, carefully took the baby from her arms. With experienced hands, he cradled the baby, murmuring soft, comforting words. There now," Ray soothed, as he gently rocked the baby. "You're safe now, both of you." Claire wiped her face, her tears leaving trails on her cheeks. "Thank you," she managed to whisper, her voice thick with emotion. She watched as Ray, with a reassuring smile, helped calm her baby, his presence bringing a sense of safety she hadn't felt in hours. "I'm Ray," he said, glancing up at her with kind eyes. "And this waggy tail here is Thunder," he added, nodding towards the dog who had stayed close by, its tail thumping the ground. Thunder, sensing the lighter mood, trotted over to Claire and nuzzled her hand, inviting a pat. Claire smiled weakly and stroked the dog's head, comforted by the animal's warmth and friendly demeanour. "Where did you come from?" Ray asked, his voice low and concerned as he looked around the dimly lit woods. I don't know exactly. We walked for so long," Claire replied, her voice faltering as the reality of her ordeal began to settle in. "My husband. He left us. I tried to find our way back, but everything looked the same." Ray's brows furrowed in concern. "Well, you don't need to worry about anything now," he reassured her. "You and your little one can stay with me and Thunder tonight. We'll sort everything out in the morning." His offer brought a new wave of tears to Claire's eyes, not from fear or sadness, but from gratitude. "Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much." Claire followed Ray toward the rustic cabin, nestled among towering trees. Thunder pranced alongside, his tail wagging energetically, adding a light-hearted contrast to the somber mood. As they approached, the cabin's warm glow promised a safe haven, a much-needed respite from the cold and confusion of the woods. Inside, the cabin was cozy, filled with the rich aroma of wood and earth. Ray quickly set about making Claire comfortable, fetching her a steaming mug of coffee and preparing a simple sandwich. Claire cradled the mug between her hands, the warmth seeping into her chilled fingers as she recounted the day's harrowing events. Ray listened intently, his face etched with concern. "You should go to the police," he suggested once Claire had finished her story. Claire shook her head firmly. "No, I can't. If Jeremy did this to me, he won't just let me go. He'll find me," she said, her voice strained with fear. "All I want now is to protect my child." Ray sighed deeply, the weight of Claire's situation settling upon him. He understood her fear all too well. After a moment of silence, he began to share his own story, his voice soft but filled with a lifetime of unspoken pain. "I know what it's like to be unwanted," Ray started, his eyes distant. "My mother left me with my aunt when I was just a baby. She had too many mouths to feed and not enough to go around. I grew up knowing I was an extra burden." Claire listened, her heart aching for the old man before her. Ray continued, "I never really fit in, Felt like I was always on the outside looking in. So when I got old enough, I left. Found this piece of land and built my life away from everyone." He gestured around the cabin, which was simple but well kept. "Got my garden, my chickens, and enough peace to last me a lifetime. Thunder here," he said, nodding toward the dog, "is about the only company I need." Claire smiled faintly, touched by his resilience and solitude. "It sounds like you've made a beautiful life, Ray," she said sincerely. Ray nodded, a trace of pride flickering in his eyes. "It's not much, but it's honest, and it's mine. And you're welcome to stay as long as you need, Claire. No one should go through the tough times alone." Their conversation drifted into the evening, each finding comfort in the other's company. A shared understanding of lives altered by circumstances beyond their control. As the fire crackled softly in the background, Claire felt a sense of safety and belonging, her fears temporarily soothed by the warmth of her newfound refuge. Claire awoke to a morning draped in the soft light of dawn, the air fresh and alive with the sounds of the forest. It was her first full day in Ray's cabin, and with the light came clarity. She could now see the beauty that the twilight shadows had hidden. The cabin was nestled in a serene clearing, encircled by towering trees and vibrant flower beds that Ray had nurtured into life. As she stepped outside, the crisp morning air filled her lungs, revitalizing her spirit. The path that wandered deeper into the woods was lined with meticulously cared-for flowers, each bloom a testament to Ray's devotion and care. The tranquility of the place was palpable, and for a moment, Claire forgot the turmoil that had led her here. Throughout the day, Claire's thoughts often returned to Ray's solitary life in such a remote place. She wondered how he coped with the loneliness, how he filled his days surrounded by nothing but nature. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Claire decided to broach the subject. "Ray, don't you ever feel lonely out here?" she asked tentatively. Ray smiled, his eyes reflecting the fire's glow. "Lonely? Not really," he replied quickly. "I see God in everything around me, the trees, the soil, the sky. How can I be alone when I'm part of all this?" He gestured expansively, encompassing the world outside the cabin walls. Claire nodded, understanding his sense of connection to the world he had made his home. Over the next few days, as she helped Ray with chores around the cabin and explored the surrounding woods, she began to feel a profound peace settle over her. The simplicity and the beauty of Ray's world were captivating, and she found herself admiring everything he had built with his own hands. One tranquil evening, as she cradled her baby, walking along the flower-lined path, a decision formed in her heart. She approached Ray, who was tending to his vegetable garden. "Ray, could we stay a bit longer? I can help you with the garden, the chickens, anything you need," she offered, her voice hopeful. Ray paused, looking up from his plants with a broad smile, then let out a hearty laugh. "Stay longer, Claire? I haven't had much company over the years, but I can tell you, it's been a pleasure having you and your little one here. You're more than welcome to stay, as long as you need," he replied, his voice warm and welcoming. Relief and gratitude washed over Claire. Here, in this unexpected sanctuary, she had found not just safety, but a new sense of purpose and connection. As she thanked Ray, she felt a deep sense of belonging. This place, which had first appeared as a mere refuge, was quickly becoming a home. Ray, with his deep-rooted faith, believed that every event held a divine purpose, and he saw the arrival of Claire and her son as a new chapter in his life, one that he embraced with open arms and a joyful heart. It was Ray who had suggested the name Isaac for the baby, meaning, "He will laugh," or "He will rejoice." It was a name filled with hope and happiness, a fitting start for a new life that began under such dramatic circumstances. Naming Isaac was a moment of profound honor for Ray, who had never had children of his own. He took to the role of an honorary grandfather with a natural ease that brought a new layer of joy to his quiet life. Claire, whose dreams of becoming a doctor had been set aside by the twists of fate, found a new purpose in caring for Isaac and helping Ray around the cabin. She transformed the small home into a vibrant hub of activity where laughter often filled the air, much like Isaac's namesake. Ray continued his regular trips to town, not just for groceries, but also to trade the forest's bounty, fresh-picked mushrooms and wild berries, with the locals. His visits to the bookstore became a cherished routine, bringing back books for little Isaac, fueling his education and curiosity about the world. As Isaac grew, Claire made the decision to homeschool him, a task she undertook with dedication. The books Ray brought from town were invaluable, covering subjects from literature to science, each one carefully chosen to nurture a growing mind. In this secluded world, Ray played a pivotal role, not just in providing but in teaching and sharing the wisdom he had gathered over the years. The days passed, each one weaving tighter the bonds of this unlikely family, created by circumstance but strengthened by choice and love. As Isaac grew, he transformed from a tiny dependent baby into a smart, handsome boy who loved to explore the world around him. His curiosity was insatiable, and he often accompanied Ray on walks through the forest, asking countless questions about every leaf and bug they encountered. "Grandpa Ray, what's this flower called?" Isaac would ask, pointing to a bright bloom. "That's a foxglove, Isaac. Beautiful, but very poisonous," Ray would explain, his eyes twinkling as he imparted his knowledge to the eager young boy. Isaac absorbed it all like a sponge, and he took pride in helping around the cabin. He learned to fetch water, tidy up, and even started to help with more significant chores. Every time Isaac called him Grandpa Ray, the old man's heart swelled with pride and warmth. It was a title Ray cherished deeply, one that signified much more than just age. It was a testament to the bond they had formed, a bond as strong as any blood relation. One sunny afternoon, as Claire was hanging laundry to dry, she watched Isaac and Ray return from one of their walks. Isaac was animatedly talking about the deer they had spotted, his hands gesturing wildly as Ray listened with a patient smile. "Mum, you should have seen them. There were 3 and one was a baby deer. Grandpa Ray said it's called a fawn." Isaac bubbled with excitement as they approached. Claire smiled, her heart full. "That sounds wonderful, Isaac. I'm glad you and Grandpa had such a good time," she said, ruffling his hair. Ray set down his walking stick and leaned against the porch railing. "This boy is going to outsmart us all, Claire. He's got a sharp mind," he said with a proud grin. "I hope he uses it to do good things," Claire responded, her voice tinged with the dreams she harbored for her son. Isaac's fascination with the natural world grew as he did, stretching like the towering trees that surrounded their cabin. His childhood curiosity about flowers and insects had matured into a studious interest in the sciences, especially biology. He spent long hours examining the rough bark of tree trunks and the mysterious silent life of stumps, trying to decode the stories of their existence and demise. "Why do you think this tree fell, Isaac?" Claire would ask as they walked through the forest, her voice encouraging his investigations. "It might be disease or maybe a storm. I need to look closer," Isaac would respond, his brow furrowed in concentration, a notepad in hand to jot down observations. Ray and Claire continued to fuel Isaac's thirst for knowledge with books, each one carefully chosen from Ray's trips to the town. The evenings were often spent in the warm glow of the cabin's fireplace, with Isaac absorbed in his latest book, occasionally sharing fascinating facts or theories about the world around them. "It's incredible, Mom. Did you know there are trees that can live for thousands of years? I wonder what it's like to stand for so long, watching the world change around you, Isaac mused one evening, his eyes not leaving the page. Claire smiled, watching her son's passion for learning grow. It was during one of these reading sessions that Isaac's future aspirations began to take shape. His endless questions and keen observations led him to a profound realization. One brisk autumn evening, as the cabin bristled with the cozy sounds of crackling wood and turning pages, Isaac looked up from his book, a thoughtful expression etching his features. "Mum, I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do when I grow up," he started, hesitating slightly as he gathered his thoughts. Claire put aside her knitting, her full attention on Isaac. "What's on your mind, honey?" Isaac took a deep breath, his decision shining in his eyes. "I want to be a doctor. I want to understand how things live, how they heal, how to help them heal. I want to follow the dreams you had." Claire's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. "Isaac, that's a wonderful dream. And I think you'd make an incredible doctor." Ray, overhearing the conversation, nodded in agreement. "With your mind and your heart, Isaac. I believe you can do that and much more. We'll do everything we can to help you achieve that dream." Isaac's face lit up with determination and gratitude. "Thanks, Grandpa Ray, Mom. I know it's going to be a lot of hard work, but I really want to do this." From that day forward, Isaac's studies took on a new direction, guided by a clear goal. Claire and Ray supported him every step of the way, securing more advanced books, sometimes even driving to larger libraries in distant towns. Isaac's path was set, his ambition to heal and help others a beacon that lit up his journey ahead, inspired by the very dream his mother had once cherished. Isaac stood at the threshold of his new life, his suitcase packed with essentials and his heart brimming with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It was the day he would leave for college, a day he had been preparing for with relentless dedication. As he loaded his bags into Ray's old truck, Claire took a deep breath, knowing it was time to share a part of their story that had remained unspoken. "Isaac," Claire began, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "before you go, there's something I need to tell you about your past." Isaac turned to face her, his expression open and attentive. As Claire recounted the painful details of his father's abandonment and the journey they had undergone to find refuge with Ray, Isaac listened without interruption. His face remained calm, absorbing the gravity of his origins with a maturity beyond his years. "Mum, it's okay," Isaac finally said, his voice calm and reassuring. "What matters is you and Grandpa Ray. You're my family. That's all I need." Claire hugged him tightly, grateful for his understanding and love. With those words, Isaac set off for college, carrying not just his books and clothes, but a deeper appreciation of the life his mother had fought to give him. At college, Isaac pursued a degree in cardiology, driven by a passion to understand the human heart, not just its rhythms and valves, but its capacity to endure and heal. His background, devoid of the usual distractions of modern youth, endowed him with a rare discipline and focus. He excelled academically, his professors often commenting on his meticulous attention to detail and his intuitive grasp of complex concepts. After graduating at the top of his class, Isaac returned to his home state to start his internship at a local hospital. There, his practical skills and theoretical knowledge quickly set him apart. He worked tirelessly, often going beyond the call of duty to ensure his patients received the best care. Years passed, and Isaac's reputation grew. His unique combination of compassion and surgical precision earned him accolades, and soon he was recognized as one of the best heart surgeons in the state. His success was a testament to his hard work, but also to the values instilled in him by Claire and Ray: values of resilience, kindness, and unwavering determination. Despite his achievements, Isaac remained humble, often attributing his success to his upbringing in the quiet solitude of the forest with Claire and Ray. "The woods taught me about life's rhythms," he would say, "and my family taught me about its depths." Isaac frequently visited Claire and Ray in their secluded woodland home, bringing them whatever essentials they needed. Living simply in the woods, Claire and Ray didn't ask for much. Whenever Isaac came by, they welcomed him warmly, offering their blessings. They even reassured him that it was all right for him to make his life in the city permanent if he wished. During one of his visits, Isaac brought up his concern. "Grandpa Ray, you're not getting any younger. Don't you think it's time to consider moving somewhere a bit closer to the city?" Ray, leaning on his walking stick with a gentle smile, responded, "This forest has been our home for so long, Isaac. The peace it offers, the birds singing, the rustle of the leaves. It's something the city just can't give us." Claire nodded in agreement, her eyes reflecting the deep love she held for their tranquil surroundings. Isaac understood their attachment, but also saw this as an ideal moment to introduce his girlfriend, Sophie, to his mother and grandfather. Sophie was a registered nurse, and she and Isaac worked together at the hospital. Their shared experiences and interests had quickly drawn them together, and they had been dating for a few months now. He smiled, thinking about how Sophie's caring nature would surely endear her to his family. "I think it's time you both met Sophie," Isaac thought to himself. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow through the trees as Isaac's old car rumbled along the forest path. Sophie sat beside him, her hands clasped together in slight nervousness. Isaac noticed and gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry," he said, his eyes flicking between the road and her. "Mum and Grandpa are going to love you." Sophie returned the smile, her heart fluttering with anticipation. "I hope so. I've got a plan to help convince them to move closer to you. But let's keep it as a surprise for now," she teased. As they arrived at the cabin, the scent of pine and fresh earth welcomed them. Claire and Ray were waiting outside, their faces lighting up at the sight of the young couple stepping out of the car. "Isaac, and this must be Sophie," Claire exclaimed, her voice warm and welcoming as she embraced Sophie. Ray, leaning slightly on his cane, extended a shaky hand with a broad grin. "It's a pleasure, young lady. Anyone important to our Isaac is family to us." Sophie was touched by their warmth. "Thank you for having me. I've heard so much about you both." They all moved inside the cozy cabin, where a fire crackled in the hearth. Over cups of hot tea, the conversation flowed easily. Sophie listened intently as Ray recounted tales of the forest and its secrets, while Claire shared stories of Isaac's childhood adventures. As the evening wore on, Claire found a moment to speak with her son privately. "She's not just beautiful, Isaac. There's a kindness in her eyes. You've chosen well, my son." Isaac's chest swelled with pride. "She's also got a plan to help convince you and Grandpa to move to the city. She thinks it'll be easier for me to look after you." Claire's expression softened. "We'll see, dear. It's hard to imagine leaving this place." As the aroma of freshly cooked dinner filled the cozy cabin, laughter and chatter echoed off the wooden walls. Claire had outdone herself with a hearty stew, while Ray had regaled them all with tales of his youth during the preparation. The four of them sat around the rustic wooden table, plates piled high, the warmth of the cabin enveloping them like a snug blanket. Just as the meal was winding down, Sophie gently tapped her glass with a spoon, catching everyone's attention. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I have something important to share," Sophie began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Isaac and I have been thinking about our future together, and we've decided we want to start a family soon. Isaac, sitting beside her, felt a rush of affection for her courage. He hadn't anticipated this part of her plan tonight, and his heart swelled with love and surprise. Sophie continued, her gaze sweeping over Isaac's mother and grandfather. But we know it's a big step, and having family support is so important. We would love for you to be a part of our children's lives, not just on visits, but every day. Isaac found his voice, joining in. We'd really feel better knowing you're both just around the corner, not only for us, but for our future kids. They should know their great-grandpa and grandma. Claire and Ray exchanged glances, the weight of the decision evident in their eyes. The room fell silent for a moment, the crackling of the fire filling the space. Then Ray leaned forward, his weathered face breaking into a thoughtful smile. "You make a compelling case, you two. It's not easy thinking about leaving this place, but you're right about family," Ray said, his voice thick with emotion. Claire nodded slowly, her eyes misty. "We've spent many wonderful years here, but perhaps it's time for a new adventure. For our family." The discussion that followed was heartfelt and open, with everyone expressing their hopes and concerns. By the end of the evening, a decision was made. Claire and Ray agreed to move closer to Isaac and Sophie to be part of their new chapter. A few months later, Isaac purchased a house with enough space for everyone. It had a beautiful garden that reminded Claire and Ray of their beloved forest, and it became a project for the whole family to cultivate. It was well past midnight when the shrill ring of Isaac's phone cut through the silence of the night. Groggily, he reached for it, his eyes barely open. The voice on the other end was urgent, pulling him from the warmth of his bed to the cold reality of his responsibilities. "Dr. Barnett, you're needed for an emergency operation. A helicopter will be at your place in 10 minutes. The urgency of the situation jolted Isaac awake. He quickly dressed and briefed Sophie on the situation before rushing out into the crisp night air. The helicopter's blades whipped the air into a frenzy as he climbed aboard, the gravity of the situation settling over him like a heavy cloak. Upon landing at the private estate, Isaac was ushered into a sprawling mansion where James O'Donnell, a middle-aged man, lay in critical condition after a stroke. The urgency and complexity of the situation required Isaac's full attention and skill. Hours passed in the operating room, each minute stretching on as Isaac and his team worked tirelessly. Exhaustion clawed at him, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. Finally, the operation concluded successfully, and Isaac allowed himself a moment to breathe a sigh of relief. A week later, grateful for the positive outcome, James insisted on expressing his thanks by inviting Isaac to a dinner at his mansion once he had recovered enough to do so. It was an offer Isaac accepted, recognizing the importance of such gestures in building relationships and goodwill. The dinner was a lavish affair, attended by James's family and close friends. They gathered in the grand dining room where Isaac was introduced with high praise. Throughout the evening, Isaac was commended for his skill and dedication. "You've done a remarkable job, Dr. Isaac. Your parents must be very proud," James remarked warmly during the dinner. Isaac smiled, nodding in acknowledgement. "Yes, my mum and grandpa are really proud," he responded, the pride in his voice clear. "What about your father?" someone asked innocently, unaware of the sensitive nature of the question. Isaac hesitated for a moment, the question catching him off guard. He quickly composed himself and brushed it off with a light laugh. "I never knew my dad, actually, but it's all been good." The room fell silent for a moment, the atmosphere shifting slightly. "I'm sorry to hear that," James said sincerely, his voice softening. The atmosphere in the grand hall of the mansion was filled with the soft clinks of wine glasses and the murmur of conversation. The evening had been one of celebration and appreciation, but it was about to take an unexpected turn. As the family prepared to present Isaac with a watch in gratitude for his life-saving operation, Shannon, the patient's elderly mother, approached him with a warm yet sombre expression. "Dr. Barnett, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for us," Shannon said, her voice trembling slightly as she shook his hand. "May I ask, what is your mother's name?" Isaac, a bit taken aback by the question but seeing no harm in it, replied, "Her name is Claire." At the mention of the name, a visible shock passed between James and Shannon. James's face drained of colour, his expression one of disbelief and confusion. "Is your mother white?" James asked abruptly, his tone shifting noticeably. Isaac, puzzled by the sudden change in demeanour, replied cautiously, "Yes, she is. But how did you know that?" James muttered something under his breath, dismissive and vague, and quickly turned away, not meeting Isaac's eyes. The discomfort was palpable, and before Isaac could probe further, Shannon and James excused themselves and retreated to a private room. Muffled voices could be heard from where Isaac stood, the tone of the conversation sharp and urgent. After a few tense moments, the doors swung open and James returned to the hall, looking distraught. He sank onto a sofa, his face buried in his hands, a picture of despair. The argument between James and Shannon escalated quickly. Isaac, still standing in the hall, could not help but overhear. James's voice grew louder, his words tinged with anger and betrayal. "It was your decision, Mom. Of all the doctors in the city, you ended up running into him, Claire's son," James exclaimed, his voice cracking under the strain. Shannon stood by, silent and pained, absorbing the accusations her son hurled at her. Isaac, still processing the unfolding drama, felt his heart sink. The pieces began to fall into place, and a chilling realization dawned upon him. The implications of James's words were clear, yet almost too shocking to accept. Could there be a hidden connection between his mother and this family? As the argument continued, Shannon appeared increasingly distressed, her face marked by years of secrets now coming to light. Isaac felt a mix of emotions, anger, confusion, but mostly an overwhelming sadness. The night had started with celebration and gratitude, but now it teetered on the brink of a family scandal. The echoes of James's angry shouts filled the opulent hall, but they were abruptly silenced by Shannon's sudden outburst. Her voice, heavy with years of suppressed emotion, reverberated through the room. "Enough! I'm tired of all this! Claire never cheated on you!" she screamed, her voice cracking under the strain. Isaac, who had been silently preparing to leave, froze in place. His mother's name, spoken in such a charged context, sent a shock through his system. He turned sharply to look at James, whose face mirrored his own disbelief. "What did you just say?" James stammered, his anger momentarily replaced by confusion. Tears were already streaming down Shannon's cheeks as she buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Her body shook with each cry, a testament to the weight of the secrets she held. James, now desperate for answers, continued to press her. "Mom, what are you talking about? Explain yourself," he demanded, his voice a mix of frustration and pain. After a few moments, Shannon composed herself enough to lower her hands and face the gathering. Her eyes, red and swollen, found Isaac's. With a trembling voice, she spoke directly to him. "I'm so sorry, child. You are our child. You are our blood." The room fell into a stunned silence, the air thick with shock. Every pair of eyes was fixed on Shannon, waiting for her to unravel the mystery that had just been laid bare. Taking a deep breath, Shannon began to speak, her voice steadier, but still laden with emotion. Many years ago, our family faced a scandal we thought we could bury. My great-grandfather was black. It was a different time, and our family did everything to conceal this fact. We thought we had succeeded, but the truth has a way of coming out. James listened, his earlier anger giving way to a complex mix of emotions. The realization that his grievances against Claire might have been grounded in falsehoods made him reel with guilt and confusion. Isaac's world had turned upside down in a matter of moments. The revelations of the evening had left him reeling, and now, staring at the man he should call father, he found himself caught between disbelief and a rising tide of anger. "Should I refer to you as Jeremy O'Donnell, sir?" Isaac asked, his voice steady but laced with a barely contained fury. The name was foreign yet familiar, heavy with implications he was only beginning to understand. Jeremy, the man known to the world as James, remained seated. His body slumped against the plush cushions of the sofa. His face was hidden in his hands, his figure shuddering with sobs that racked his frame. In a desperate attempt to regain some composure, he pulled at his hair, a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. It was a heart-wrenching sight, yet Isaac's sympathy was tempered by the years of lies and the sudden, stark revelation of his father's identity. Jeremy had changed his name at his parents' request to avoid any connections or consequences from his past actions, including abandoning his own son. Finally, Jeremy lifted his head, his eyes meeting Isaac's. The recognition of his son, the doctor who had just saved his life, transformed his expression from one of anguish to one of profound remorse. He staggered to his feet, tears streaming down his face, and moved toward Isaac with arms outstretched. Isaac remained still, an immovable rock in the face of his father's emotional onslaught. Jeremy's tears and sudden gesture of affection did little to soften the walls Isaac had built over the years. The embrace that Jeremy sought was met with resistance. Isaac did not move to return it. In the midst of his anger, a smile broke across Isaac's face. It wasn't a smile of happiness or forgiveness, but one of vindication. He thought of Claire, his mother, the woman who had raised him, who had weathered accusations and doubt. In his heart there was a profound relief, a confirmation that his faith in his mother had been justified. She had been his steadfast protector, and his loyalty to her was unshaken. Jeremy looked at Isaac desperately. "I'm so sorry, Isaac. I never wanted this. I hope one day you can forgive me." Isaac didn't say anything. He stood in the grand hallway of the mansion, surrounded by faces that were technically family but felt like nothing more than strangers to him. Despite the profound revelations and the emotional turmoil of the evening, he felt a detachment from the people before him. They were part of his biological heritage, yes, but they did not hold a place in his heart. As he reached the grand doorway, Isaac paused and turned back to face the group. The room held its breath, anticipating his next words. With a quiet dignity, Isaac addressed them all. "Thank you for the dinner," he began, his voice calm and clear, "and you are all forgiven. Despite everything, my father is the reason I am in this beautiful world. I am proud of who I am, and that strength comes from my mum and Grandpa Ray." There was a palpable sense of relief and sadness in the room as Isaac spoke. His words, though forgiving, carried an unspoken finality, a closure to this unexpected chapter of his life. Without waiting for a response, Isaac turned and walked out of the mansion, the heavy doors closing softly behind him. He drove home, pushing his old car faster than usual, eager to return to the true warmth of family that awaited him. Upon arriving home, Isaac went straight to his mother, Claire. He wrapped her in a big, heartfelt hug, a silent expression of all the love and gratitude he felt for her. He decided not to burden her with the night's discoveries. Instead, he simply told her about the successful operation and the dinner he was invited to, as a thank you. "I love you more than anything in the world, Mom," Isaac said earnestly, looking into her eyes. Claire's eyes sparkled with tears of joy and pride. She hugged him back fiercely, her heart swelling with love for her son. "And I'm so proud of you, Isaac. Always." That night, Isaac felt a weight lift off his shoulders. The past had unfolded in ways he could never have imagined, but it was his present and future that mattered most. He felt free and clear-headed, his heart lighter than it had been in a long time. As he lay in bed that night, thoughts of his upcoming wedding to Sophie filled his mind. He envisioned their future together, a future built on love, honesty, and the values his mother and Grandpa Ray had instilled in him. Isaac drifted off to sleep with a smile, content in the knowledge that no matter what had come before, his path forward was one of happiness and hope.